When you think of a company, what comes to mind? Probably a brand, right? Or maybe a big office building. But here's the thing. In the eyes of the law, a company is basically its own person. It's a separate legal entity. And that separation creates this powerful shield for its owners. So, what happens when that shield isn't used for protection, but for deception?
And that's really the question we're digging into here. Can you literally set up a company to hide what you're actually doing? Can it be a mask, a front, a clever disguise to get around a promise you made? Well, let's find out.
Okay, so to understand how the disguise even works, we first have to get our heads around the shield it's built on. This is like one of the most fundamental ideas in modern business.
This concept right here, separate legal personality, is a huge deal. It means a company can own stuff, sign contracts, sue people, and get sued all in its own name. It creates this legal wall, this shield that protects the personal assets of the people behind the company from its debts and its actions. It's the whole reason people are willing to invest and take risks.
And that is the crucial point. This shield is incredibly strong, for sure, but the law isn't naive. It recognizes that any powerful tool can be abused. And when that happens, well, sometimes the courts decide they're going to look right through it.
So let's see how this all plays out in a classic legal story. And this isn't just some dry theory either. This is a real-life drama from way back in 1933 that totally set the stage for how we think about this today.
All right, meet the players. On one side, we've got the Guilford Motor Company. And on the other, there's this guy, a former employee named Mr. Horn. And the core issue? Mr. Horn had signed a contract, a promise, that said he wouldn't compete with his old employer after he left. Pretty standard stuff, right?
This slide just lays it all out perfectly. On the left, you've got the legally binding promise he made. But on the right, you've got what he really wanted to do. He wanted to get right back in the same business, maybe even steal his old company's customers. He was legally blocked from doing that, so he came up with a plot.
So how did he think he could get away with it? Well, he decided to use the very legal tool that's meant for protection, not as a shield, but as a mask. He created a company to be his front, his facade. His plan was, deceptively simple. First, he set up a new company. He even put his wife and an employee down as the official directors to make it look totally separate from him. Then, step 2, he used that company to compete directly with Guilford Motor Co. His argument was pretty cheeky. He wasn't competing. His company was, and since the company is its own separate legal person, he claimed he hadn't broken his promise.
I mean, it's a clever move, right? He's trying to use a core legal principle as a loophole. He was banking on the court seeing him and his company as two totally different things, which would put him in the clear. But was the court buying it? And this brings us to the big moment, the court's decision. The judges looked at Mr. Horn's clever little scheme and, let's just say, they were not impressed. They decided to do something really rare and incredibly powerful. They decided to pierce the corporate veil.
And these are the court's actual words. They didn't see a real, separate business. They saw a sham, a front, a mere facade. They basically said this company was created for one reason and one reason only, to let Mr. Horn break his promise. It was a disguise, and they saw right through it.
So the court just said, nope. For the purposes of this case, we are ignoring your company's existence. They looked right past that corporate shield and saw the man hiding behind it. They slapped an injunction not just on the company, but on Mr. Horn himself, holding him directly responsible. The shield was broken.
So what's the big lesson here? The story of Mr. Horn isn't just some dusty old case file. It established a huge legal idea that's still very much alive today, and it defines the absolute limits of that corporate shield.
This is what we call piercing the corporate veil. You've got to understand it's an exception to the rule. Courts are really reluctant to do this because that whole separate personality thing is so important for business. But they will do it in special situations when justice absolutely demands it.
So when will they step in? Well, just like we saw with Mr. Horn, if a company is just a sham or a facade, basically if it's set up just to get around a legal duty you already have, a court might just pierce that veil. It's all about making sure a legal principle isn't being twisted to get away with something shady. And that's really the bottom line here. The corporate shield offers legitimate protection for honest business. It's what allows people to take risks and start new things. But it's not a license to cheat. It's a shield, not a magic invisibility cloak you can use to avoid your responsibilities.
Which leaves us with a really fascinating final thought, doesn't it? We've just seen that a legal structure, as solid as a company, can be treated as a total disguise if its only purpose is to deceive. It really makes you wonder, what other structures that we all take for granted are maybe a little more fragile than they appear?